Hello, my name is Dennis Shire. This is the short version of a very long story. How long? Well, when it comes to being a creative director copywriter over 3 decades. After working at well-known ad agencies in Boston and New York, I moved to the left coast and worked for Chiat/Day Mojo. Shortly after that, I ran the very successful advertising boutique Shire SF, where we introduced brands and products like eMusic.com, Quicken, and QuickBooks for Intuit, and created a dozen years of trailers for the Mill Valley Film Festival. We were among the first digital interactive agencies from day one, though we never used that terminology, as we created the first web experiences for Infinity Broadcasting and the very first dozen web banners for Intuit on Yahoo. I closed Shire SF in 2007 and consulted for multiple clients, produced a pop record, and created a video content company for the music industry. In 2009, at the request of a former client, I took a left turn and became creative director at Zynga, leading the charge on Cityville, creating all their characters and narrative and social media strategies for the game, which eventually had 20 million players per day. Recently, I've been splitting my time between PopCult, a new content engagement company I founded in 2013, my syndicated radio shows, and consulting as a creative director, copywriter for clients. And now, in part 2 of my iPhone cover letter, I thought to give you a little bit of my creative motivation and maybe a little bit of my presentation skills, I take you through some of my favorite movie posters in my house. Let's start with Valley Girl. Killer soundtrack from the 80s, definitely new wave. First part ever played by Nicolas Cage, and just wonderful, wonderful direction. A 4-star film for sure. It's one of my favorite documentaries. Joe Strummer of The Clash, The Future is Unwritten. I had the pleasure of interviewing the director Julian Temple for my radio shows. We can all learn a lot from the international prowess and musical taste of Joe Strummer. And as you can probably guess, I like music a lot. The Commitments, most definitely one of the greatest novels written by Roddy Doyle, and some really, really famous taglines and lines in the film. They had absolutely nothing, but they were willing to risk it all. I am a huge Cameron Crowe fan. I share a lot with him. I did a lot of musical things at a very young age, including interviewing bands at the same age that he did for Rolling Stone, and I freelanced for Rolling Stone. And that's why, of course, I also love the movie Singles, which no doubt was one of the best films that portrayed the grunge era in Seattle. When it comes to writing, one of my favorite novels is High Fidelity, of course, written by Nick Hornby. Fantastic soundtrack. And even though they moved the film to Chicago from London, it was still a wonderful movie. Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me? I'm a huge fan of director-writers, and Lawrence Kasdan and Grand Canyon is one of the most intense stories about Hollywood, but the cast is unbelievable. Danny Glover, Kevin Kline, Steve Martin, Mary McDonnell. I admit it, I have a crush on Mary Louise Parker and Alfre Woodard. Fantastic Los Angeles story. It's one of my favorite posters in my house. It's actually the British poster for The Graduate, and I really don't need to tell you about why I love this film, but I am a huge Simon & Garfunkel fan. And the last poster I'm going to take you to is Animal House. What can I say? When I was in college, I wanted to be in this movie.